to, as it were, tune in to the miraculous medium of video. My name is Shiels. Tony Doc Shiels to my friends, but you knew that already, didn't you, friend? But I hope that you will get to know me a wee bit better through this absolutely marvelous televisual tale-telling medium. The title of this piece of TV tale-telling is "It's Alive," a phrase made famous by Colin Clive in his famous role of Frankenstein, the man who created a monster. Now, Frankenstein made the inanimate animate. And I propose to do something very similar during the course of the next 60 minutes or so. The music was composed and arranged by Ewan Nicholl Shiels and is played by that incredibly gifted Celtic quintet, the Sons of the Desert. Now, I think it's important to establish a few facts at this stage of the proceedings. This is not a normal, in quotes, type of magic video. It has been filmed over a series of months in various different locations. You may notice variations in, say, the length of my whiskers or the color of my socks. Continuity is, after all, merely an illusion. I will tell and show you things, strange and secret things. I am a magician, a wizard, a shamanic surrealchemist, a bizarrist. Bizarre magic is, first and foremost, a style of presentation. It rejects all the trappings of mere trickery. Its effects are, or should be, authentically magical. My particular brand of bizarrism is a kind of illustrated storytelling. In Gaelic Irish, they use the term shanky, which describes roughly what I do. I tell tales, all of them totally true. I am not a close-up conjurer, a table hopper, or a cabaret mentalist, stupid word. I gave up all those sort of things many, many years ago. I do things differently. For a good many years, hundreds in fact, I've wandered the highways and byways of the Western world, spinning yarns and working wonders. For fun and profit, sometimes just for the sheer hell of it, and quite often I can tell it was sheer hell. But that's the way of the world. The Celtic countries have, until recently, been my usual tramping grounds. Ireland, Scotland, and Cornwall mainly, magical lands with rich traditions of ghosts and monsters, demons and enchantments, dragons and the little people, disturbing, diminutive entities. I have had dealings with all these things during my travels. It may seem odd to you in this day and age, but wherever possible, I prefer to travel by foot, to tramp the more obscure and out-of-the-way highways and byways. That's the road to adventure. Why don't you come now and join me on a jaunt? I will allow you to relax in your armchair while I do all the walking.
through the wild wood wandered in the merry month of May, and as he roved, this pagan pondered in a thaumaturgic way. Fire drakes, fiddlers, flying saucers barbarized his bardic brain. Herds of Hibernian horses proffered parables profane. Cryptic codes and cantrip casting, ambiguously alone, led this lapidary laddie spellbound to a special stone. 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 Stone.
This stone, this lump of serpentine rock, is an oracular speaking stone. It can tell you things by its movements. In Cornwall, it will be called a Logan stone. It is a very, very magical object, very old, older than humankind, older even than Doc Shiels himself. The stone is haunted. I acquired it years ago from an old Cornish cunning man by the name of William Pigwiggin, who was a kind of spellcaster. And the stone was given to the Pigwiggin family as a gift by St. Petrock. And so, rather appropriately, I think, I call the stone Logan Petrock. It is very, very magical. Observe and marvel. Logan Petrock serpentine, as this wizard now intones, give to us a living sign, do my bidding, Logan stone. It's alive. Damned thing.
the tent show Summers, the fairs, Doc Shiels and Company with Professor Calvini, Punch and Judy, Tom Fool's Theatre of Tomfoolery, a marvelous madness about it all.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you marvels, wonders, astonishment. Doc Shiels, Wizard of the Western World, presents his unique exposition of thaumaturgic theatricality. Doc Shiels and Company, with the mysterious Maureen, the bewildering Christine, the bewitching Psyche, inside this very tent. It's alive! It's alive!
I love the intoxicatingly bizarre atmosphere of an old-fashioned fair. People lose their inhibitions, discard the boring restrictions of civilized normality. So here's to King Puck, and here's to all the goetic goats I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And here's to Nid and Surrey Alchemy. It, too, is alive.
Years ago, in Ireland, around the pubs and bars, I used to have great fun telling fortunes, doing a bit of cold reading, dukering, making my judgments by the evidence left from the froth, the rings, and a glass of Guinness. Gynomancy, I think you call it. Black magic, in a way. For instance, I could tell you now, just by looking at the froth rings on this glass, that the man who has been drinking it is incredibly handsome, a marvelous personality, all-round fun guy, bon vivant, very, very attractive to the opposite sex, intellectually a giant, but profoundly misunderstood by most of his fellow men. Good health. Disgusting.
In the Celtic realms, such as the country through which we are currently cantripping, travelling, you will encounter many old ruins beyond myself, ancient ring forts, towers, castles. And they remind me of the ancient heroes such as Finn McCool and O'Sheen, of the wizard Merlin and King Arthur. They are a constant inspiration to a wandering wizard, a Surrey alchemist such as myself. These old stones remember, they record and recall. They are a means by which we can travel in time. Rock, hard stone, the bones of Mother Earth, and the deep green waters of the Dragon Pool. Who knows what lurks beneath the surface of that water?
dragons, aquatic beasties, sea monsters. I must admit, this is the stuff that first inspired me to try and raise the Loch Ness Monster. Guinness, G-U-I-N-N-E-S-S, the great unknown in Ness. In a glass darkly, she was lurking in the dark peat-stained waters, and I, inspired by this marvelous black magical brew, invoked her. This, in fact, is the very camera that I used to photograph Nessie back in May 1977. A cheap and shoddy Zenith EM. You notice that the lens is missing. That is because it isn't attached to the camera at this moment. Nevertheless, this is the historical object, the very one, the famous camera that took the most famous 2 photographs of the Loch Ness Monster back in 1977. But do I digress? Not really. I go back to 1976, that long hot summer, when the great Cornish sea serpent, Morgar, first raised its ugly head in Falmouth Bay. And at that time, I became involved in the invocation of beasties of that very nature, assisted by a coven of several naked witches. You can understand the symbolism of my technique. We were successful. I photographed both Morgar and the Loch Ness Monster, and in later years, 2 or 3 humpy-backed, serpentine Irish creatures. It is a fascinating field from which I have only recently retired. So it's left wide open to you, my dearies.
Now, we are at the edges of woodland, the entrance to the greenwood. Now, odd, peculiar things can happen in there because strange little creatures live within those green leaves and the wood. I intend to spend the night here, and perhaps you will join me. You will no doubt have noticed that I do tend to avoid the highways and byways of the over-civilized parts of the world and creep into the greenwood areas, the secret parts, in order to pitch my camp and to attend to myself in a way that I don't find in any way uncivilized. And I don't feel in the slightest way deprived of those items that people who live in houses require. I am totally, utterly satisfied with this particular lifestyle. Shangri-La. Strange things happen in woodlands, amongst the oak and the ash and the bonny ivy tree. The oak, sacred to the Druids and to the Greeks. The tree spirits were the Dryads. The ash, the Nordic tree of life, Yggdrasil, and the ivy, evergreen, immortality. Trees, wood. Wood is strange stuff. Xylem tissue. Wood, in early usage, used to mean mad, like a seer. Green, green, compounded from blue and yellow, hot and cold, heaven and earth. Green, the color of the first part of the great work in alchemy, the green dragon. And I think its wavelength is something between 500 and 550 nanometers in your visible spectrum. One of my favorite pieces of prestidigitation. Ever since over 40 years ago, I first saw it performed brilliantly by that amazing Egyptian magician Gali Gali. And he did it as a stage act in a full-size theater. An absolutely marvelous trick, which in those days didn't seem to be performed by too many sleight of handsters. But of course, since Dave Vernon published his incredible routine, which I've used myself, I admit, far too many people seem to be using it. The chop cup too. Nevertheless, it is an incredible piece of magic. Cups and balls go back thousands of years. They're part of a great tradition. And the escamoteur, the cups and balls manipulator, is an archetypal figure, a symbol of magic, of the hocus pocus, now you see it, now you don't variety. And the trick itself is like a whole magic show. It contains all the elements of a good piece of theatrical magic. Envanishments, color changes, multiplications, transmogrifications. An incredible trick.
Of course, it does represent sleight of hand, manipulation, finger flinging, something with which these days I don't get involved all that much. I'm not all that good at it, but I did for years perform the cups and balls as a busker. Cups and balls, again, symbolizes the figure of the street magician. The shell game, all that kind of thing, is symbolized by this marvelous trick, the cups and balls. And of course the hand is important in manipulation. The hand is a powerful symbol in occultism. It's important to palmists, the old cross my palm with silver, dearie, and good luck to you, but keep your fingers crossed.
Green. Green's number is 5. 5. The Kabbalic sigil. The pentagram, which in the Kabbalah symbolizes fear. 5 is my number. I am related to it, numerologically speaking, by my birth date in this present incarnation. Because I was born on the 24th day of the 5th month, 1938, which reduces neatly to 5. My official human age is 50. 50. But remember that 5 on the 5-pointed star signifies fear.
Now, I own a wooden hand, a rather odd one, carved from druidic oak. I've been told that it actually belonged to Anton Mesmer. It has a strange, uncanny life of its own. To me, the hand, with its 5 points, almost similar to the pentagram, don't you think? Let me show you Mesmer's hand. That hand reminds me of the beast with 5 fingers and Xianon de Lu, 2 old movies which featured disembodied hands. A frightfully Freudian symbol, wouldn't you say? I'm fascinated by the cinema, especially old movies, old horror movies. The ones made before the war, or at least before the 1940s. They're a great inspiration to any bizarrist or surrealchemist. Going back to the silent days, I think especially of Murnau's Nosferatu, with the astounding Max Schreck, lovely name. Now that was an authentically disturbing and very, very weird film. Then there was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, with Werner Krauss as the evil doctor. He certainly had a great influence on the character of Doc Shiels and his Cabinet of Curiosities. There was The Golem, The Student of Prague, Lon Chaney and The Phantom of the Opera, many, many classics of silent horror. And these films,
They linger in the unconscious like dreams. The figures like phantoms repeating the same strange actions time and time again. They are authentically oniric. With the coming of sound, we have such classics as Dracula, directed by Todd Browning and starring the immortal Bela Lugosi. Bella, Bella, you have a strong will, Van Helsing. Then there was James Whale's Frankenstein, and its sequel, the even better Bride of Frankenstein, with some marvelous characterizations from such people as Dwight Fry, Ernest Thesiger, Colin Clive, Elsa Lanchester, and of course the gentlemanly Henry Pratt. Karloff. Marvelous films. The lessons that bizarrists can learn from these old horror movies are concerned with atmosphere, timing, delivery, presentation. And presentation is everything. You know, these days, I would much rather watch an old horror movie on the TV than, say, a magic show. In fact, as I get older, I find magic shows rather embarrassing and irritating. But there we are, that's just the way I am. Maybe some of you would disagree. There is a place in television, I think, for bizarre magic. But any wise bizarrist would be well advised to carefully study the old horror films and to pick up important lessons in lighting, music, special effects, dressing, all the rest of it. Take my advice. That is the kind of stuff you must study.
Greenery, verdant vividis, foliage foliatus, rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb. Moving pictures, warning shadows. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. The devil, they say, finds work for idle hands. Moving pictures. People used to say that the kinematograph was an invention of the devil. Pictures. And these things, these Satan's playthings, the devil's picture book, these very cards. 22 cards, the major arcana of the tarot, the ancient book of Thoth, used by countless generations of gypsy fortune tellers, cartomancers, and seers. Go and catch a falling star. Get with child a mandrake root. Tell me where all past things are, or who cleft the devil's foot. Each card is said to have symbolic meaning. For example, the star represents bright hope, expectation, and promise. The hangman symbolizes intuition and divination. The moon, deception, danger, hidden enemies, the occult. And the devil, Old Scratch, Lucifer, Beelzebub, the horn god of witchcraft. His satanic majesty represents different things to different people. Now, you look to me like a different sort of person. Here, take the cards and mix them face down. Thank you. Now I'd like to show you something else rather interesting. An old pocket watch and chain, from which dangles a silver skull, a death's head, a reminder of our mortality. And the watch, you can see, is significantly stopped at exactly 1 minute
after midnight. 12 plus 1 is 13. And 13, amusingly, is the number of the death card in the tarot. Now, have you mixed the cards? Thank you. Now we'll see if the Grim Reaper here can discover the whereabouts of his old pal, the devil. There will be, I think, significant movement when that occurs. Not yet. Not quite yet. He's beginning to get just a wee bit excited, I think. Yes. Yes, significant movement. Winter shins. Talk of the devil, there he is. The man himself. Old Scratch. Right, let me attempt a further experiment in devil raising. These very cards were given to me over 30 years ago in Spain, in a little village in the mountains called Casa Ragonera, by an old Andalusian gypsy woman. These Gitana witches certainly know how to raise the devil. And I will attempt the same thing now. Jimu Klani or Bengi, Hokano Baro Maros Bengi del Boen Baron Nid. Well, well, well. Look who's here. Talk of the devil. Oh, and there's his old pal. Get down there, number 13. Get down. So, there we have it. The devil's moving picture book. It's alive. Well, hello, my dearios. Here we are, jumping from the past to the future. Now, I don't like the word mentalism. I'm not even sure of the word magic these days. I think less is more, because I don't like tricks. I don't do tricks. These lads here with me, the fellow behind the camera here, for instance, doesn't approve of sleight of hand and trickery. He's only concerned about me as a wizard. Therefore, as Paul Daniels would say, this is a kind of laboratory condition situation. I do not cheat. I do not like gimmicks, bits and pieces of the thaumaturgical, prestidigitatorial trade. I do what I do by means of pure wizardry. Clouds. Clouds. I like clouds. Do you like clouds? I love them. You can do things with clouds. I think that perhaps I won't do any with these, but almost any one of them, especially that tiny one over there, over the slightly big dragonish one, I could cause to fade away, to vanish if the conditions were correct. In fact, I think I can see him fading now. This is an old-fashioned thing for weathermongers to do, but... Oh, look, he's going now. He's hardly there. Can you see the way he's fading? Just a tiny one. Look, he won't be there for much longer, because I pointed the lip of my pipe at him. Look, he's just about gone. And that, my dear, is weathermongery in the field, done correctly. See? See? The cloud has gone. That's the way to do that particular trick.
Well now, look at this. Press cuttings, newspaper clippings, as our transatlantic cousins call them. Clippings always reminds me of toenails, kind of things that witches collect. But no matter. These things are just a few examples of what we've achieved, if you can call it that, over the years. Publicity of this kind is quite easy to achieve. All you have to do is go for it.
Doc, you believe in demons and devils and spirits and spooks?
I don't believe in anything, absolutely, apart, of course, from surreality and nidnidism. But I have seen demons. I've seen ghosts, hobgoblins, monsters, phantoms. When I was very young, I once saw the disembodied head of a horse, glowing green, huge bulging eyes, a real nightmare, in fact, and also a gigantic, horribly green, glowing, writhing caterpillar about the size of an anaconda or a giant python. Green, the colour green seems to have very strong significance here. It represents life and death, life and decay, life, death and rebirth. In the 19th century, one of the most famous spiritualistic mediums was a fellow called Daniel Douglas Hume, who claimed to be the illegitimate grandson of the Earl of Hume, which in fact relates him to the late British Prime Minister, Sir Alex Douglas Hume. Interestingly, in that connection, one of the ladies accused of witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts, a while back was called Margaret Thatcher, but that's by the way. Daniel Douglas Hume was a very successful and very, very famous, very popular spiritualist, and one of his great tricks was to... One of his great tricks was to cause an accordion to be played by a disembodied spirit. There's no players like Hume. I will see if I can do something similar for you and invoke the spirit of Daniel Douglas Hume. Come on now, Danny boy.
I wonder if it could be done with something a wee bit larger than an accordion. That was rather spooky, somewhat bizarre.
Ghosts. Spirits are very strange, peculiar things. Even the most inanimate objects can become animate. And I believe that this place is genuinely haunted. In fact, everything is alive.
What about poltergeists? What exactly is a poltergeist?
Well, the word literally means noisy or rowdy spirit in German. Geist meaning spirit, and polter, noisy. They are very troublesome things. They throw objects around, household impedimenta, pots and pans, cups and saucers. They rip the bedclothes off people's beds. They actually kick people around sometimes. They disrupt domesticity. A poltergeist plays havoc with a household. They make orderly things disorderly, and probably because of that I approve of them rather strongly. They're sometimes called duende de casa, the mischievous spirit of the house. Most modern parapsychologists and psychical researchers tend to be of the opinion that poltergeist phenomena is a kind of uncontrolled psychokinesis or telekinesis. Psychokinesis now known as PK in the trade, and they often associate it with prepubescent or adolescent girls and regard it as unconscious, uncontrolled PK. Now, PK, I think, if it's uncontrolled, can be an extremely frightening and sometimes dangerous thing.
But you practice PK or mind over matter yourself, don't you?
Well, frequently, yes, but then we all do. If you just raise your arm, it's mind over matter. If you operate a TV, changing channels with a remote control device, that's a kind of PK, mind over matter, because these things are all part of human experience and human invention. Everything in human experience is psychic in the real sense of the term.
What about things like spoon bending and causing objects to move by so-called psychic power?
So-called, spoon bending is primitive PK. Elementally, my dear interviewer.
I suspect trickery.
And I am outraged at such a suggestion, but far too polite to do anything about it. Trickery is for tricksters. Magic is for magicians. I am a magician, and my methods are varied. Magic, no matter by what means it is achieved, is concerned with effect. Effect is the only important thing. Nothing else matters.
What's your opinion of spiritualism?
Spirits of the dead. There's a movement, a craze, a religion. I'm not all that impressed. Modern spiritualism was virtually invented by the Fox sisters, Katie, Margaret and Leah in Hydesville, New York State, around 1848. They popularized the idea of spirit raising, table turning and all that stuff, and very soon it has become a huge craze. On the subject of poltergeist, some would say that the showers of stones, the rapping and the drumming noises are caused by invisible spirits. My friend Colin Wilson, who has written an important book on the subject,
thinks, after quite a lot of deep research, that in fact these things are invisible, noisy spirits. These days, what once was spiritualism is now called channeling or communication with alien entities, things of that kind. It's all part of the same game.
But Doc, you can't actually believe in poltergeists.
I've already told you, I don't believe in anything absolutely apart from surreality and nidnidism. But as you are so interested in poltergeist phenomena, I suggest that you watch and listen very, very carefully.